Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hope you all are doing well today. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the session 4A, the impacts of e-commerce on transportation. Hope you all are doing well this morning. Excited to hear from some outstanding partners in our industry. As you all know, supply chain's been just a minor issue that's been talked about lately, so I'm excited to have some expertise given to us this morning. I'd like to introduce our three speakers. The first is Aubrey Brown with CSX Railroad. Aubrey is the Senior Manager of Business Development for CSX Transportation for Georgia and Florida. He is responsible for influencing the location of new industry along CSX and connecting short line properties. Aubrey understands the CSX operating network and positively influences the development of new sites for customers at locations that complement network operations. Aubrey serves as an advocate of rail use to the business community and economic development partners. Industrial development helps businesses locate or expand their facilities along the CSX network. Aubrey works not only with existing and potential customers, but also with representatives of state and local government agencies and shortline railroad partners to help facilitate these projects. The BD team maintains an extensive inventory of potential sites for new or expanded customer locations and works with many departments throughout the company to help bring projects to fruition. Aubrey is a member of the Georgia Economic Development Partners Association, or GEDA, Georgia Railroad Association, or GRA, the Florida Economic Development Conference, and the Southern Economic Development Council. Aubrey is a veteran of the South African Navy and received his law degree from the University of Pretoria in South Africa and his MBA from the University of Phoenix. He is fluent in English, Afrikaans, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and Italian. So please join me in welcoming Aubrey.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Can you hear me? Anyway, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about the freight railroad. And just to start off, wanted to give you an overview. You all know CSX Transportation, third largest railroad in the eastern United States, east of the Mississippi River. And we basically have a new mantra that as you continue to grow your business, we want to provide first-class rail service for you. We've undergone a major transformation since 2017 to precision scheduled railroading. It's running a scheduled railroad. We've had some challenges with COVID, but I'll discuss those with you. The guiding principles of the CSX Railroad are number one, always number one, safety. Operate safety. Safety is the number one issue on the railroad. We're working very hard to improve customer service. We want reliable and efficient operations. We want to optimize our assets, and we believe in the value of developing our employees. So, what is CSX? It's a 19,500-mile route network. You can see the system east of the Mississippi. We're in 23 states, including the District of Columbia. We have advanced intermodal terminals across the system. We connect to 230 short line railroads and 70 port terminals. Now, the United States freight rail network is about 45,000 miles with 600 plus railroads connected. There are 7 Class 1 railroads. What is a Class 1 railroad like CSX? It's a freight railroad with operating revenue of over $450 million a year. On the east side, you've got CSX and Norfolk Southern that are the same size. The western part of the country, of course, is the Union Pacific and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. The Kansas City Southern goes north-south, and then you've got the 2 Canadian roads up there, the Canadian Pacific and the Canadian National. And all these short lines connect to the Class 1 railroads. Revenue in 2021, even coming out of the COVID pandemic, was about $10.6 billion. You can see the mix of freight. It is different merchandise. We've had an unexpected uptick in coal, unbelievably. The coal industry was on the decline. We were moving away from coal. The railroads were built to ship coal, but with all of the energy crisis, what's transpiring in Ukraine and Russia, suddenly in India and in China, they're burning coal. And while we're not doing it in the United States, the railroads are very happy to ship coal to the ports and then ship it overseas where it's used in their manufacturing, and it's been a boon for us. One of the things we've done, the environmental advantages of rail are something to consider. People never think about that, but our slogan is that we can take 533 miles is the distance 1 ton of freight moves on a single gallon of fuel. What we've done is we're combining these trains. What you'll see, most of you are in Atlanta, if you see these intermodal trains that are coming out of Atlanta that are coming to the Georgia Ports Authority, these things are nearly 3 miles long with distributed power. What that means is we've put a locomotive in the middle of the train in order so you don't have so much tension on those knuckles coming in. But what it's done, it's greatly increased the efficiency. I'm not going to go to all these details, but we have a system called CSX. When a new customer starts on the railroad, the system allows you to trace your cars, track cars, release railroad cars. There's a whole plethora of information that comes in here. But I wanted to speak a little bit about the topic at hand, e-commerce on the railroad. So we all know that when COVID started, suddenly everybody was sitting at home and everybody started ordering online. And there was a huge, absolute huge increase in online deliveries that didn't subside for about 1.5 years. Now you'd think, where does the railroad fit into this e-commerce side? Well, where that does is in the intermodal side of the business, our container business, right? And in Atlanta, we've got a very large yard, intermodal yard in Fairburn. Predominantly, there are 2 ways that the product comes in. So it comes into the Port of Savannah, and this product moves inland to Atlanta, and that moves up to an Appalachian regional port in Murray County that we built 3.5 years ago to distribute into Tennessee. In Fairburn, all of that traffic in Fairburn is coming from the West Coast, from California, in a partnership between CSX and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. That has worked very well for us, but we're able to get product by container. And where the trucking industry was our adversary, in this case, the railroad is working with the trucking company. We work closely with J.B. Hunt and Schneider, people like that. And it's more on the containerized side of the house. Now, something which is interesting that you might not know, all of these railroads, these freight railroads in the United States, 635 railroads, only transport 9% of the freight in this country. The trucking industry's got 91%, so just a 1% change for us is billions of dollars. So we know that the future for the railroads looks at absolutely concentrating more on the intermodal side of the house, working closely with the ports, because, I mean, this is where most of the product is coming in. And as the Port of Savannah grows, some examples are, and Stacy will talk about this, one of the greatest investments in the state of Georgia was the $155 million rail expansion project called Megarail here in Savannah. Whereas prior to Megarail, you could get 500,000 containers onto trains, both Norfolk Southern and CSX, because you've got 2 Class 1 railroads coming in here. It's now 1 million. That gives Georgia a tremendous competitive advantage. Another thing is, I was personally involved and worked with the GPA on the site selection and the establishment of the Appalachian Regional Port in Murray County, Georgia. What that has done, besides the e-commerce opportunity for the railroad, we've taken 65,000 semis off 285 in Atlanta. So that's a great traffic mitigation strategy. What we do is we've got an inland port now 20 miles from Tennessee. Well, guess what, guys? Tennessee's landlocked. There's no port. Guess what? The GPA saw that opportunity, and there's been tremendous expansion. The port, I think, has expanded 1 time already by 50%. You've got big companies like GE that have suddenly come in, and if you knew Murray County before that, I mean, it's sleepy northern Georgia, man. I mean, there was nothing there. And there was a lot of resistance by a small group of people, but it's really proved to work well because what it does is it serves the Dalton area, the carpet, the flooring industry, and everything else gets to use this intermodal product. So we have, the rail industry, like every other industry, is not without challenges. 90% of our workforce is a union environment, right? So the train and engine crews are who we need. We are having a hard time finding railroad conductors. I'm just going to be honest with you. We've got 500 people through the training program in Atlanta this year so far. Our railroad training centers in Marietta Boulevard, the yard up there, the Tilford Yard. We can't keep up with the attrition, and it's as if no one wants to work on the railroad anymore day and night and 7 days a week. I wonder why. But it used to be a time when working for the railroad was the thing to do, but when Amazon pays $30 an hour for an air-conditioned warehouse. So this is a challenge moving forward, I mean, I don't know in the future whether we'll have one-man crews, what the technology is going to do. We are constantly looking at that. We're looking at different, fuel sources. But coming back to the e-commerce side, we think that the competition for us is not the other railroads. It's the trucking industry. But in order for us to succeed and to be competitive, we've got to be more truck-like. Now, the railroad, unfortunately, is a little slower. We do very well with heavy freight that's coming a long way, steel, corn. I mean, you can't feed, millions of chickens without a unit train. Georgia for number one. The chickens are the number one industry in the state of Georgia. I put 2 feed mills in there last year up in Ranger, Georgia. They're getting 36,000 tons a week. Indiana corn coming down. But we think that working with folks like the Georgia Ports Authority and the trucking industry more closely, aligning with these guys, we think we can grow that intermodal product, which will both complement the trucking industry as well by allowing it, because if it's going to move more than 500 miles, the best way to do it is on a train, double-stacked containers. Double-stacked, moving west, moving east, and moving north, because the most efficient way for the volume and the price is to get the product from Georgia, say, to New York, to the Chicago market. There are only 4 major interchange points on the freight railroads in the United States. Chicago, number 1. It is the number 1 freight rail hub in the United States, followed by East St. Louis, Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans, Louisiana. That's how freight moves back and forth. Now, if you're shipping from Georgia to California, you pay one bill, but there's 2 railroads involved. It's a little more involved than that. We don't have a seamless flow at this point. So what to leave you with is we want to grow our business. We're interested in working with partners, but we think that intermodal will be the future for the railroad. Absolutely. We've got an almost 20,000-mile network. It's on a 40,000-mile rail network. We're seeing tremendous interest in the railroads as well. We are seeing that at the moment because of the fuel price. Obviously, every time the diesel price goes up, there's more opportunity, but Georgia's been the beneficiary of 2 very large announcements this year. I'm personally working, by the way, I do the business development for CSX in Georgia, and we're working on the Rivian project up in Walton County. It's $5 billion. That's going to be about 60,000-foot rail yard. At full production, they'll be producing 350 VINs a year, 350,000 VINs a year, which is about 133 railroad double-stacked auto racks a day coming out of there. To give you an idea of the scope, it's about 9,000 people they're hiring, and then right here in Savannah, Hyundai Motor Corporation announced the new electrification of the Kia vehicles, $5.5 billion. The Rivian deal was the largest in the history of the state of Georgia. Suddenly was eclipsed by another one, by another, and you're throwing billions around like millions. So the future of the state of Georgia is bright. For you guys, there'll be a lot of work. For us, the railroads, we have to overcome some challenges, but we're ready to be part of the transportation solution, and we think that if we change some of our technologies and make it easier to do business with us, we think the future's, very bright. So I'll leave it at that just to give you an idea of where we are. I'll let the next person come up and answer some questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. So our next speaker is Stacy Watson. Stacy joined the Georgia Ports Authority in 1992. He has held numerous positions within the Georgia Ports. Prior to becoming the Director of Economic and Industrial Development, Stacy held various management positions to include marketing, container operations, and ship operations. Anything else, Stacy? He is a graduate of Leadership Savannah and Leadership Georgia. He serves on several board of directors to include the Georgia Forestry Association and the Georgia Economic Developers Association. He is also a member of the Propeller Club of Savannah, the Transportation Club of Savannah, and the Richmond Hill Rotary. Stacy earned his AS in Business Administration from Middle Georgia College in Cochran, Georgia. He then received his Bachelor of Business Administration in Marketing with an emphasis in logistics and intermodal transportation from Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, Georgia in August of 1992. In 2004, he also earned a Master of Business Administration from Webster University in Savannah, Georgia. Please join me in welcoming Stacy Watson.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Again, I'm Stacy Watson. I'm Director of Economic and Industrial Development with the Georgia Ports Authority. Yes, I've been with the port for almost, I can't get it out, 30 years already. Time has flown. Held many positions within the port. As they say, I'm a lifer there. It's one of those places that it's different every day. When I started with the Georgia Ports, we had 6 ship-to-shore cranes there. Now we've got 30 with 8 on order. I can't believe that. just the difference in our growth between last year and this year was about twice the amount that we did back in 1992. So we've grown, a long way in a fairly short period of time. And just fortunate to have seen the transformation of the Georgia ports. And what I do on a daily basis as Director of Economic Development, I work with, it's basically half sales, half project management, working with folks like Aubrey, the employees down at the Georgia Department of Economic Development, all the utilities, the statewide utilities. I get involved in economic development projects like Hyundai, like Rivian. Most of my day, though, is spent with warehouses and distribution centers, like, the Wayfair announcement, the Procter & Gamble announcement that just recently happened. Anything that involves import or export, I become a part of that team. And we've had a lot of success over the last few years, not just in the Savannah area, but in Georgia as a whole. So what I've got prepared for you today is basically an update on the Georgia ports. We are growing. We're actually the largest single, down in Garden City, Georgia, the largest single container terminal in the United States. And we're also the number 3 gateway for international trade. The number 1 gateway would be LA and Long Beach, 2 different ports, but 1 gateway along the San Pedro Basin. Number 2 would be New York and New Jersey. And number 3, right here in your backyard in Savannah, Georgia. Does everybody in here know, before we get started, what a TEU is? Some people don't? Okay, have to start out with that. TEU stands for 20-foot equivalent unit, okay? So what that means, ocean-going containers come in 3 different lengths, if you would. 20 feet, 40 feet, and 45 feet. So one 20-foot container would be 1 TEU. So one 40-foot container would be 2 TEUs, exactly. Got engineers in here who can do math really quick. So we moved the equivalent this past calendar year of about 5.6 million TEUs through our facility. The number 2 port, New York, New Jersey, moved about 8.9 million TEUs. So I like to say we're kind of a big deal down in Savannah. This particular slide, this is our first slide, and I'll basically give you an update on our business. This vessel can carry the equivalent of about 15,000 TEUs in one voyage. As far as your from least expensive to most expensive mode of transportation, it's usually truck, rail, vessels. So this is not even the largest vessel that calls on the East Coast and calls Savannah. We've since moved to a different class of vessel that can move about 16,000 TEUs. So the ships keep getting bigger. We keep growing. So a lot of the focus of this presentation is going to be how we're going to grow to meet the demands of international freight and international shipping now and 10, 20, 30 years from now, okay? So down goes forward, right? Just a little bit about how we're set up. I am an employee of the Georgia Ports Authority. I am not a state employee, but the governor is the boss. Don't get me wrong there. He appoints our board, and our board operates or runs our port just like any other board would do. They set policy, approve budgets, they're involved in strategy, but we operate like a private business, okay? We operate for a profit, and every penny of profit is then reinvested back into our port facilities. Doesn't go out to a general fund, doesn't go to the state's general fund, doesn't go out to shareholders. It's reinvested back into our expansion plans for the next 5 to 10 years. And when I say Port of Savannah, that's 2 different terminals, okay? That's the Garden City Terminal and Ocean Terminal. Garden City Terminal, that is the jewel in the crown, if you would. About 91% of our revenue is derived from movement of containers. Containers is the future. Containers is the present and the future. So a lot of the investment that we make going forward is going to be to improve our ability to handle more containers through the Garden City Terminal. And again, it's the largest single container facility. It's about 1,500 acres. The next largest facility is on the West Coast, Pier 400, which is about 400 acres. So we've got a jewel with the Garden City Terminal. Also, the Port of Savannah, we've got Ocean Terminal. And if you've ever been, it's right underneath the Talmadge Bridge. It's a 200-acre. Right now, it is a multi-purpose facility, multimodal, if you would. We do some containers at Ocean Terminal. We do break bulk, and we do ro-ro. There are about 40 to 50,000 units of roll-on, roll-off freight, basically cars and construction equipment. But we're going to convert Ocean Terminal to 100% containers. So that break bulk and that ro-ro freight will move down here to Brunswick. We've got the Colonel's Island facility. Okay, Colonel's Island is actually the #2 auto port in the nation. We're doing about 640, 650,000 automobile units through the Port of Brunswick as well. So again, #2, and we've got the ability there to grow to about 1.2 million units on an annual basis. Mayor's Point is our break bulk facility, small 20-acre facility that's doing well for us. The East River Terminal is a facility that we lease out to a third party. And that third party is Logistech, and they export wood pellets like you use in your Traeger grill. We export those to Europe, where they burn it and they produce electricity with it. They have to have a certain amount of renewable feedstock when they, coal-fired, when they produce electricity, and we've got plenty of that feedstock here in South Georgia. We've also got an inland port strategy, which Aubrey touched on, which are basically rail connections to inland points around the state, basically extending our terminal gates closer to where the demand for freight is, okay? That's huge for us. We plan to do more rail business in the future moving forward. Right now, the rail business is about 20% of our business, and we expect that number to go up to about 30% in the future, and I'll explain to you why we like that. But the Appalachian Regional Port up in Northwest Georgia right now is our only Georgia Ports Authority owned, GPA operated facility. You've got Georgia Ports Authority employees there and Georgia Ports Authority equipment. Just like Aubrey was saying, direct rail connection from the Garden City Terminal through your neighborhoods in Atlanta, taking a few trucks off the road, going directly up into the ARP, Northwest Georgia. Lots of customers up there, and that was more of an economic development play as well as an opportunity for us to take a few trucks off the road. We found, basically, and your engineers, you'll understand this, we found a nice flat piece of land up there in the middle of all those mountains. So that was the first one. Okay, Northeast Georgia, which is, we are in the process of building a second intermodal facility. Okay, that facility, not necessarily flat. Okay, I didn't understand it until I went up there. You walk onto the land that we purchased, you look to the left, you see a valley, look to the right, you see a mountains. These are the mountains, so Appalachian Regional Port cost us maybe $35 million to develop, whereas the Northeast Georgia Inland Port cost us about $166 because of the topo there. So yeah. Like I said, you'd understand that. The Appalachian Regional Port, we're doing about 35,000 containers on an annual basis. Northeast Georgia Inland Port, we're going to build it to a capacity of about 200,000. If you are familiar with that I-85 corridor, it's like a who's who of retailers and port users along that corridor. So again, taking a few trucks off the road, and that'll be served by Aubrey's competition up there, Norfolk Southern. And we will actually build a third inland port as well. We've acquired the property in west central Georgia, and that'll be CSX as well. So CSX will have 2 out of the 3. And that facility will be there it's more of a typical inland port with an anchor customer, if you will, and that anchor customer will be Kia, going back and forth to West Point, Georgia. We're going up with parts and equipment with Glovis, which is actually in our top 10. It's their import arm, it's their transportation arm. We'll come back with finished vehicles to Savannah, and we'll also come back with some finished vehicles down to Colonel's Island as well. Again, this is the jewel in the crown there. This is the Garden City Terminal, okay? Again, largest single container facility. My boss would say the Western Hemisphere. I haven't confirmed that, so I'll just say in North America. 1,345 acres. And what is so attractive about this facility, and I can guarantee you we've got some containers there. I don't know why Google does that. When we take a snapshot, they take all the containers off the terminal. But as of yesterday, we had about 75,000 containers on our facility, this little snapshot. Pre-COVID, we would have had about 45,000 containers on the terminal. And that's not necessarily a good thing that the number of containers is actually increasing on our facility. That is an effect of COVID, and that is one of the reasons that e-commerce is taking off. We actually we can work ships as fast as we actually, each one of those ship-to-shore cranes can do 30 to 35 picks per hour. But if those containers are not going out the gate at the same rate, they tend to pile up on the terminal, which is not a good thing. Once we get to about 85, 90% capacity, you start seeing, some friction. So our job on the port at the Georgia ports, we're not built to store freight. We're built to move freight. So that is an unfortunate byproduct of this import surge that we're seeing going on right now. We need more warehousing in the Savannah area. We need more trucking capacity. We need more chassis in the area just to have that ability to move freight, because we do not want our terminal to become a warehouse for retailers that do not have enough space off the terminal to store their freight. But this is the largest single container facility, again, in North America, the longest contiguous dock in North America, 2 miles of docking space for vessels. Again, we've got scalability on our facility. We can actually grow. We have land that we can expand onto, unlike LA and unlike New York, New Jersey, just that scalability. You can see that small hatchet-shaped piece on your bottom left. We recently acquired that, and that's going to be used for terminal expansion as well. So lots of opportunities for us to grow, lots of opportunities for us to spread out on the largest single container facility in North America. I won't read all these numbers to you, but as long as that top number has a positive in front of it, we are doing well. And it is actually amazing that for calendar year 21, we grew by 20%, okay? This is during a partial year that we thought we would be down by about 12%. During the depths of COVID, every consultant, every, industry expert that we talked to said it would be 4 to 5 years before we got back to pre-recession levels. They could not have been more wrong, okay? In pre-COVID, you would have heard me say that we try to maintain about a 20% gap between our actual throughput and the capacity of the facility, because our business is cyclical. And if we actually have an issue, around the country where there's an issue at another port and our business were to surge, we want to be able to take advantage of that freight and without it actually impacting our productivity. So pre-COVID, 20% gap between throughput and capacity. There you go. We grew by 19.9% in 1 year. So yes, we did have some growing pains, and we continue to have growing pains at the Georgia ports. These are the top 10 ports in the United States. We look at a 15-year compounded annual growth rate. We want to take out any anomalies that you may see, like what's going on now, produce a smoother average. So you can see that for the past 15 years, we have been the fastest growing port in the United States at a compounded annual growth rate of about 6.6%. Okay. Anybody in here from Charleston? Okay, so I can pick on them a little bit. You can see Charleston, whoever does their PR, you would think they're this huge, this large port, but look at the size they are compared to the size of Savannah, okay? We are more than twice their size. And Charleston will be at 100% capacity at about 5.2, 5.3 million TEUs on an annual basis. So that just gives you a little context as far as our growth. Right now, the weekly vessel calls, you notice that there are only 3 ports on the East Coast that have more than 30 regularly scheduled vessel calls. Right now, we have more than 35 with what we call ad hoc vessels or extra loaders that are coming in with additional freight that the ocean carriers are bringing into the United States. So what you're seeing are hub port designations for the South Atlantic, Savannah. Definitely that hub port for the southeast. For the North Atlantic, you've got Norfolk, and for the Mid-Atlantic, you've got Norfolk, and for the Northeast, you've got New York and New Jersey. Again, what does that mean to you? I like to compare that to taking a flight to LA from Savannah versus taking a flight to LA from Atlanta. Okay, in Savannah, we've got 1 flight a day, maybe not even a day, maybe 2 or 3 flights a week to LA. Atlanta, you may have 11 a day. So those airlines are going to have to compete for your business in Atlanta. In Savannah, you're going to pay what they tell you to pay if you want to get on that plane. So it gives the cargo owner options for negotiations. It gives them leverage. So you can see that Savannah in the South Atlantic with 35 weekly vessel calls, and that's all over the world. That's not just for one particular trade lane. Gates. This particular slide, it sells more real estate in the Savannah area than anything that I can do or Aubrey can do or Hope can do. It's the productivity of our gates, okay? How many times can a truck get in and out of our facility, okay? And how long does it take? What's the dwell time for that truck? These truckers, as Hope's going to tell you, they're making money by the haul. They're making money by the dray. They're not making money by the hour. So we invest a lot of time, a lot of dollars, and a lot of resources into keeping our gates fluid in Savannah, okay? For that one truck, say he's just dropping off an empty or dropping off a load, it takes about 42 minutes, okay? Say he's dropping off an empty and picking up a load. That's a two-way move. That's a little over an hour. This one trucker within the local area on the low side can get 4 turns a day between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. in and out of our terminal. And on the high side, some shippers like IKEA and Target are getting 10 to 12 turns a day, okay? How many do you think they're getting in New York and New Jersey? Just a wild guess. One turn a day. LA Long Beach, less than 1. So you can see how truckers are actually attracted to the Port of Savannah because they're not sitting there idling. They're moving. If you ever have an opportunity to take a tour of the port, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There's movement on the terminal. There's movement outside the terminal gates. There's no queuing at the terminal gates. So we take a lot of pride in that, and that actually goes directly to that shipper's bottom line. That trucker doesn't have to charge idle fees. He's not just sitting there waiting on the opportunity to get into the truck. We try to keep them moving as much as possible. Also, in Savannah, a lot of folks don't realize that we're about 25 nautical miles up the river. We are a river port, just like almost every other port on the East Coast, with the exception of Norfolk. So it takes a vessel about 3.5 hours to get from open sea to our terminal, which is a good thing. Like I said before, as long as that container stays on board that vessel, that's the least expensive mode of transportation, so you're basically taking it about 25 miles inland. And our location in Garden City is the industrial area of town, okay? So we're not competing with residential, we're not competing with commercial, that's where people come to work. So not a lot of soccer mom traffic, if you would. If you look at other ports around the country, you'll see the city is growing up around the port infrastructure, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Also, being 25 nautical miles up the river, that actually puts us very close to Interstate 95, very close to Interstate 16. So quick, out of the terminal, out to the warehouses and distribution centers, and out to the interstate arteries that connect us north, south, and east and west. Also, if you look at Savannah, and a lot of people can't wrap their head around it, we're the most westerly port on the East Coast. And in logistics, distance equals dollars, okay? We're 100 miles closer to Atlanta than any other U.S. port. And I don't like this analogy, but it's kind of true. Atlanta's like the New York of the South. Lots of population moving into Atlanta. As Aubrey mentioned, lots of population moving into Tennessee and the Southeast as a whole. So people got to have their stuff, and we want their stuff to flow through our port. If you think about it, we're a 4-hour truck drive from Atlanta, 4-hour truck drive from Charlotte, and a 4-hour truck drive from Atlanta. So being so far west on the East Coast is a huge advantage for us geographically. Also, the infrastructure outside of the terminal gates. Working with the Georgia Department of Transportation, very important for us. If we do all we can to get the trucks in and out 4 times a day, 10 times a day, and there's a bottleneck outside the terminal gates, what have we really accomplished? So we've always been a bright spot in the state's economy. So we usually get a lot of the infrastructure needs that we ask for. And again, working with Georgia DOT, you won't find at another port that connectivity to our facilities as you would in Savannah. I mean, look at this. There are 4 different avenues to get out to I-16, okay? You've got 3 different avenues to get up to I-95. And again, we're not competing with residential. We're not competing with commercial. Just a perfect area for us to be in. And also, within a 30-mile radius of our port, 30 miles, there's about 90 million square feet of industrial space. that's growing. We're the fastest growing industrial market of our size as a percentage in the United States. Right now, there's about 11 million additional square feet that will be built or delivered between now and next July. And about 55% of that space is already spoken for. Again, that's a direct effect of e-commerce, direct effect of the growth of retail in the United States and in the local area. Just a few of our near-port major customers, like a who's who of retailers, some manufacturers, and you can see that a vast majority of those these customers are actually in the e-commerce industry. Again, it reads like a who's who of retailers within close proximity of the terminal, also around the state. Bless you. Just a few of our customers up and down the I-95 corridor, the I-16 corridor. So Georgia has been ranked, and brag on Georgia a little bit, as the #1 state for doing business by Site Selection and Area Development Magazine for the past 8 years in a row. That's not business attraction, it's basically business retention. The majority of new jobs created in the state of Georgia are from existing industries expanding. That's not a story that's told often enough, if you ask me. Some of my favorite projects that I've worked, most of these distribution centers started out small in the state and have actually grown their business. So that's a testament to doing business within the state, less regulation, very business-friendly state. Fewer taxes. Gosh, I almost have to have my catcher's mitt on for those companies that are actually coming out of California and coming out of New York and New Jersey, just trying to escape those business environments. They are coming to Georgia where it's much, much more business friendly. Won't spend a lot of time on these, but these are some of the real estate statistics in the local area. Right now, total inventory is about 90 million square feet, and actually vacancy, the most updated number that I have is like 0.1%. So start building warehouses, guys. And this shows the industrial occupancy and port growth over the years. And you can see it's almost a 1-to-1 correlation. So as the port grows, so does the need for warehouse space and industrial space outside of our gates. It's a complementary, basically like a symbiotic relationship. Years ago, we were the first port to change our marketing focus. The ocean carriers are our direct customers. We don't receive a dime from Walmart or Target or Wayfair. Those are actually the customers of our customers, okay? But the ships have propellers. They can go anywhere. When you have Walmart in the local area with 3 million square feet, Target with 4 million square feet, Wayfair with 1 million square feet, that customer is going to tell that ocean carrier, if you want my business, you need to put your vessel in Savannah. And that has helped us tremendously over the past 20 years. It's actually coined a phrase that's studied at a lot of different universities and schools called the Savannah model. So a lot of other ports try to duplicate what we've done over the years. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, I got a call from another port that I won't mention asking me to do just that, just explain how we did what we did. I'm like, nobody gave us a playbook, so tough. Capital investment over the last 10 years. This is getting to the good part. Again, GPA dollars. Over the last 10 years, we've invested $1.2 billion into our facilities. Everything within the terminal gates, our responsibility. Outside the terminal gates would be either the federal government or the state government. So this is all within our terminal gates. Over the next 12 years, we're going to invest about $4.5 billion into our facilities, okay? Pre-COVID, zero debt. Right now, we're about $500 million in debt. We had to go to the bond market. We're AA plus credit. We're actually going back for an additional $800 million this year. So we're building, we're investing, which helps private equity, which helps property developers and cargo owners know that we're investing in our facilities. We're investing in our ability to grow. So it helps them when they it helps them make better decisions as they move forward. Would they want to be at a port or in a city that does not have the wherewithal to build and wherewithal to grow? No. We're able to grow with the anticipated needs of our customers. So what does $4.5 billion buy us? Additional capacity. Okay. Right now, our terminal at Garden City, the capacity is about 6 million TEUs, okay? And we're doing about 5.6. For this fiscal year, our board hasn't reported it yet, but we're going to grow another 4 to 8%, this year. So on top of that 20% during COVID, we're going to continue to grow. So there's an old saying that you don't build a church for Easter Sunday. That's not necessarily true for a port authority. We have to build for those opportunities. Like right now is our peak season, believe it or not. Your Christmas goods are actually coming through our facility right now. And just after peak season, there's another season for perishables, for chilled freight. You go into Publix, you go into Food Lion in the middle of January, and you see a watermelon and grapes. Well, those weren't grown in South Georgia. Those were grown in South America. So that cold chain is another opportunity for us moving forward as well, handling more of those chilled perishable items coming out of South America. Mason Megarail, Aubrey touched on this, definitely about 85% complete on the Mason Megarail. And what the Mason Megarail is, it's the largest intermodal facility in North America. We have both CSX and Norfolk Southern with this intermodal facility that serves them, and we've got both Class 1s on the terminal, which is a huge advantage for us because most other ports with the railroads, you either got one railroad or neither. We've got both. So if a box has to come from the ship to the yard, from the yard to rail, it's all seamless. There's no need for an off-terminal dray or a haul to get a box placed on rail. And we can actually build 6 2-mile-long trains on our terminal. And again, the rail business for us is about 20%, and we want to see that increase to about 30%. Our biggest competition really isn't Charleston or Jacksonville, even though I pick on Jacksonville or Charleston every now and then. We do about 35% of our business with China, and 60% between Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia. So the West Coast is our real competition. We do more freight in and out of the Panama Canal. We do more freight through the Panama Canal than any other port in the country. So having the ability to have such robust rail connections, we're trying to get up into Chicago, into Indianapolis, into Columbus, into Tennessee, even over to Dallas, so that we can be an option for West Coast deliveries into those markets. Rail is also important for us because of dwell times of containers on the terminal. Pre-COVID, a container would sit on our facility probably 4.5 to 5 days, okay? Remember, we're built to move freight. Containers are now sitting on our terminal for between 10 and 12 days on average. Okay, and those are for truck boxes. Rail boxes tend to flow much faster. Our goal for a rail box is 36 to 48 hours on the terminal. So you can see, again, how we can churn boxes through much more quickly utilizing the rail on our facility. Okay, I think I messed something up there. There we go. Savannah Harbor Expansion Project. Unless you've been living under a rock the past 15 years, you've heard about Savannah Harbor expansion. It is the longest studied civil works project in the United States. It took us about 15, 16 years to get to the point that we can now say we're complete. We deepen the river from the mouth of the river up to the Garden City Terminal by 5 feet. Okay, ships are getting bigger. They're getting wider, they're getting longer, they're stacking containers higher on board the vessels. So the depth, no longer an issue. The next issue is height. The bridge, the Savannah Bridge, we need at least 230 feet at high tide. Right now we are at 185 feet. So for the next generation of vessels to call on our port, we're going to have to build another bridge or work with DOT to build another bridge. So you'll hear more about that in the future. There are like 5 options. It's raise the existing bridge, new bridge, different location, new bridge, same location, a tunnel, and maybe no bridge, which I think the no bridge option is already gone. So look out for that in the near future as well. New projects, and this is intended to move our expansion capability to the left. A lot of these projects were on the books, but when you're growing at 4, 5, 6% a year, you're able to spread these projects out over a longer time period. Well, for us to take advantage and maintain that gap or that delta between our throughput and capacity, we're going to have to speed up some of our expansion projects, okay? So Garden City Terminal's peak expansion projects, and each one of these projects expands or increases our ability to handle freight. So there were some green areas on the terminal. So we've paved over some of those areas. That'll give us the ability to handle about 1.2 million TEUs. Berth realignment, we had one berth 1, that actually stuck out in the river like this. So we couldn't put a big ship up in berth 1. The Coast Guard said it's too far out in the river, so we had to straighten out that berth so that we could get a big ship in there. And we moved those smaller ships down to Ocean Terminal while we've got this project going on, and that's going to give us better berth utilization. Okay, we'll be able to work bigger ships on berth 1, and it'll actually give us the ability to increase our throughput on that berth as well. And that's a project that's a cost of about $250 million, and we're going to add 8 ship-to-shore cranes on that side of the terminal as well. One-stop dock warehouse, we own property just upriver. If you've looked at our facility, we've got the Dixie Crystals facility that separates us and this one-stop dock area. We're going to build a cross-dock facility there, and we're also going to have some container storage or container handling capacity there. Also, Garden City Terminal West expansion, that's that L-shaped or hatchet-shaped piece of land that I was showing you earlier. We're going to utilize that for container storage as well for a longer period of time that exports can come onto the terminal. Right now, the export receive date is 7 days before a vessel's supposed to work. But if you're familiar with the way that the paper industry works, those mills, they keep churning and they need places to store their containers before they placed on the vessel, and we usually give them 7 days before the vessel starts to work. With this facility, we can give them a little bit longer. And also for import containers that tend to dwell more than 5 or 6 days, we'll move it to the Garden City Terminal West area for a fee, of course, and they'll be able to wait out in that area. Okay, this is the green areas, and I don't think my videos are working. That's berth 1 realignment, and you can see how it sticks out there. We're going to basically straighten that out, and it's about 45% complete now. We should be done with this mid-2023. Okay, see if it'll work. No, I think I'm running over my time, so I better move on. One-stop dock warehouse, and again, a T-shaped transload facility that we will have container stacking ability. And that's what it looks like. In Garden City Terminal West expansion. So again, projects going through the years. Garden City Terminal will max out at a capacity of about 9 to 9.5 million TEUs. Then we'll have Ocean Terminal that will max out at about 2 million TEUs in capacity. So moving forward within the next 5 to 6 years, we'll have the capacity of about 11 to 12 million TEUs. And again, this is Ocean Terminal right now, and you can see the Talmadge Bridge. In this facility, once it's 100% improved to handle container traffic, it'll give us the capacity for about 2 million TEUs. Uh-oh, this one's working. We own this property on the other side. That's actually Hutchinson Island that we'll build lay berths so that the ships can dock there. They don't have to wait out at the sea buoy to wait for a berth. We'll build 2 berths at Ocean Terminal, add 12 cranes, and each one of those cranes is about $20 million each. So a very capital intensive operation. 2 million additional TEUs, that's the equipment to support. Also gate expansion. And eventually movement of that bridge, and that's 2025, and that's just down the road. And I mentioned the Savannah model. Won't read all these bullet points to you, but all combined make us that preferred gateway, if you would, for import, retail, freight coming in from Asia, Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, exports. We're actually a fairly balanced port as well. Right now for our loaded containers, we're about 60% import, 40% export. Georgia's blessed to have an abundance of export commodities, kaolin clay in middle Georgia, anything you can manufacture from a Georgia pine tree, we export it. Poultry, as Aubrey mentioned, we're the top export port for frozen poultry as well. So lots of advantages, lots of benefits and features, again, right here in your backyard, in both in Brunswick and in Savannah. Thank you.
All right. Our last esteemed speaker is Ms. Hope White. She is the CEO of HD Drayage and Container Services, LLC, and is the founder of Logistically Speaking Online, which is an online supply chain and logistics learning platform. Hope helps companies improve operations and develop cost-effective solutions for vertical integration. As a logistics provider within the supply chain, HD Drayage provides services that include, but are not limited to, warehousing, container storage, drayage, and transloading services to support the Georgia Port Authority and Charleston Port. I almost left that out, but HD Drayage is centrally located in Metter, Georgia, with 10.65 acres for container storage. As CEO of HD Drayage, she is responsible for the operations and strategic direction of the company. In just a minute, load your PowerPoint, so please give her an extra warm welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know if there's anything left for me to say, because just a little joke here, insider, Stacy was like, Aubrey's gonna go a little long, but Stacy, you took the cake. But those are my buddies. A little bit of insight here before I get started. I am Hope White, CEO of HD Drayage and Container Services out of Metter, right off of I-16, where they say everything is better in Metter. It truly is. A little bit of background about myself. Former law enforcement, 7.5 years, transitioned into supply chain. Started at Home Depot and piloted the very first opening of direct fulfillment center in Locust Grove, Georgia for Home Depot. Served as a transportation supervisor there for 5.5 years. Husband bought a truck, as the story goes, family-owned business, transitioned into my own, and 8 years later, we're here. Met Stacy and another friend of mine, Hannah Mullins, out of Candler County at the Georgia Logistics Summit about 3 years ago. And the port was growing so quickly, I was quickly able to identify a need that they needed, which was container storage. Fast forward, got to Metter, have 10.5 acres of storage, commercially lit, fence, and that's what we do. We support Home Depot. Home Depot is actually one of our largest companies. I am a asset-based woman-owned, minority woman-owned trucking company. We have 6 trucks, 6 drivers, and we subcontract to about 15 other trucking companies. We do about 450 loads a week out of the Savannah port and an additional 75 loads out of the Charleston port. All right. So rather than me give you all a whole bunch of data points and stats today, there is a big voice in the community of the trucking industry, and I wanted to take this opportunity to speak to some of those pain points our truckers are facing here, because we have the business from CSX, we have the business coming through the Georgia Port Authority, but there are a few things that the trucking community needs from folks like you all to speak your voice to help us keep moving the supply chain forward. All right, so critical needs of the trucking community to keep Georgia's supply chain moving forward. State of Georgia supply chain right now, there is a labor shortage. This is across the United States. Everyone is talking about shortages with drivers in the warehousing. There's a trucking shortage. It didn't help right now that we're in where we're assisting a war that's in Ukraine. And then of course the pandemic, okay? Trucking did suffer a bit there with your drivers. But on a daily basis, these are just some of the challenges that our daily drivers face every day, okay? So when we have a shortage in our trucking company, when one of my drivers is out, it puts more pressure on one of my other drivers. And just as Stacy spoke to, the Georgia Ports Authority does about 18,000 gate in per day, okay? When you're dealing with a client like Home Depot, they want you to get as many as those 18,000 out as you possibly can to get those units to the facility so that you people can go online and buy that stuff, okay? So what ends up happening is our guys end up going longer hours of service. We know that the current right now is 10 hours drive time, but realistically, that's not happening. There are a lot of violations that's being faced with some of our drivers because they're having to meet that demand to get those 18,000 units in place. Detention and delay at customer facilities. Stacy has spoke to the topic of needing more warehousing. But with that need and increase in warehousing is also skilled labor, ensuring that the people that's on the dock are paying attention, communicating, and trained to be able to turn these trucks faster so that they can get back to the port. And they're not wasting their 10 hours sitting at the dock to get unloaded. Okay? And just so you know, I didn't pull this out of a hat. I really polled my drivers for this conversation. Health problems. Drivers are wanting owners of companies and warehousing facilities to take and pay more attention and offer more benefits towards drivers for health benefits. Drivers are driving such long hours. At some of the truck stops, food quality is not as well, so they're not eating as healthy. They don't have enough time to exercise. So they're facing health problems like sleep apnea, muscular. I'm country, so I'm gonna mess this one up. So I'm gonna say back problems. Okay. Stress, lung cancer, and it's all because they're sitting, 10 to 12 hours a day constantly. Okay. Lack of home time, family time is key. Work-life balance is very essential in this business. A lot of them chose to drive trucks because it provides the opportunity for them to be home, but now they're not home, okay? I know I left Home Depot because it was 17-hour days, and it was a no for me. I'm a mother. So work-life balance is very important to the drivers as well. Expensive tolls. Now, we don't face this here in Georgia, but this came from one of my drivers up in New Jersey. He's pulling out New Jersey, New York, and he wanted me to address the expensive tolls. But in Georgia, we are facing more and more citations for violations of inaccurate bill of ladings from freight that's coming out of the port, where the clients have told us one thing about the box, and it ends up being something else. Electronic logging device mandates. Now, this is a bugger here. We know that we do have to keep our EODs plugged in. However, we're putting between a rock and a hard place when we're having to mandate the hours at 10 hours drive time and deliver the freight on time. So we're wanting, more to go to the lobby for us and see if we can get that extended. All right. Here go another word, meteorological data. And what we're talking about here is understanding that all deliveries, there are going to be some challenges when it comes to the weather. We're in South Georgia. Today it's hot. Tomorrow it may snow. It may be a hurricane. It may be a blizzard. It may be a beautiful day to go to the beach. But understanding that some of those challenges come up, and if we could pre-plan some of those data points in advance, that would definitely help with some of the transit times as well. Here's the other critical need of the community, insurance rates. Now, inside of my company in HD Dredge, we experienced a 30% premium increase within our insurance this year alone. Fuel costs, we increased. Of course, we know everyone has been paying attention to diesel costs, but we went from where one of my trucks averages $2,500 to $3,000 a week running a lane from Savannah to Atlanta, to we're doing $45,000 to $6,000 a week for one truck. Just depends on where he or she is fueling. That's insane. There is no way that my drivers can still maintain that work-life balance and be able to provide for their family, maintain the maintenance on the trucks, paying those type of fuel costs. Okay. We've increased our rates with our clients. So, everyone says, well, just pass it on to your customer. Well, then it gets passed on to you when you go to the grocery store to make your purchases. Okay. Delayed technology. This is probably one of the biggest pain points as well. Stacy talked about so many clients coming into the Georgia Port Authority, and as well as Aubrey with CSX. But what we have not addressed is the fluidness of communication when it comes to technology, from the ocean carriers to the importers, exporters, to us, the trucking companies. The information is not fluid. It is getting lost in translation. What I'm saying is, if Walmart orders 28,000 containers in China in December, and they're all one product, when they get to us in March, it's a whole different product, whole different weight. The pickup times are off, the vessel time is off. Everything is not fluid to where it meets us the same time that Walmart has made those orders. So it is essential for us as a trucking company to have the same information that the importers, exporters, and customers have when they're making those orders for those units. The critical role of supply chain workers remains among the most significant. Out of that conversation that we just had there, truckers are among supply chain workers who represent industry resilience, ensuring deliveries and shipments are fulfilled before, during, and after COVID-19. The key to keeping our truckers happy is going to be increased benefits, increased pay, increased home time. At HD Dredge, we implement team workshops, team building events. I learned it from Home Depot, and I took it to my company, and it works. We do gift cards, we do gift bags, and we're going to do a team picture here coming up. But those small things go a long way, all right? Without truckers keeping everything flowing in the supply chain, it would be impossible. Truckers are the industry's most resilient group before, during, and after COVID-19. We have the ability of the supply chain to function properly relies heavily on the hard work of truck drivers, thus relieving their concerns. It's mandatory to keep the business and world going smoothly. Along with the critical issue of retaining drivers, we are now facing a shortage of qualified drivers as well. Now listen, I love Uncle Frank, and I want him to stay in the truck as long as I can. That's typically your more qualified drivers. But we're losing them. It's time for them to retire. It's time for them to move forward. And so we have the younger generation that's coming out, and we're being pressed now upon some of the insurance companies where we cannot accept those guys into the smaller companies. They have to go work with J.B. Hunt, Swift, Warner, companies of that nature. But it is truly the companies like HD Dredge that's holding the weight down for Georgia Port Authority. So we need your assistance with allowing us, companies like HD Dredge, to be able to take those drivers on straight out of driver school as well. I thought I would plug that while I was here. As a result of this loss of drivers, trucking fleets need to prioritize driver experience over personal health benefits, provide safety incentives, increase their pay to maintain and increase their workforce. That is all I have. Thank you so much.